supported KUNV HD2 Las Vegas, the broadcast service of UNLV.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any agency of KUNV or its affiliates.
Russell Mays, recipient of the Associated Press Citation Award for breaking news coverage, author of Fear Profits You Nothing and Tell 'Em Anything, holder of 2 patent pendings, awarded diplomas in architectural and mechanical engineering, certification in avionics and radar system operations and development, United States Air Force, diploma in film and television production and performance, winner of the Good Citizenship Award from the Daughters of the American Revolution, and an all-around good egg.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's 11/3, November 3rd. And yes, I am Russell Mays. Welcome aboard. Times are just absolutely beautiful out there right now. We're about 2 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock here in Las Vegas. Don't forget, set your clocks back an hour, or is it ahead an hour? Back an hour, spring forward, fall back. Okay, yeah. Set your clocks back 1 hour. That means we get an extra night of sleep, an extra hour of sleep, actually. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves. Also, very, 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 very important is elections are coming up Tuesday. That's, 2.5 days away to vote for a better USA. Let's just put it that way. America needs this vote. We are on the verge of socialism knocking at the door. A lot of people, the youth basically, believe that socialism is a good thing. But once the knowledge gets involved, people realize socialism is a bad thing. Be prepared. If you go socialist, you'll never go back. It'll be a very difficult. You will literally have to have a military coup to destroy the government to get away from socialism and communism. Simple as that. Look what's going on in Venezuela. It was doing pretty good there. When they first got that oil strike down there, they were one of the biggest conglomerates of oil. And then the socialists and the fascists moved in, took over everything, and all that money went away. It went to whomever is in charge. None of the people got anything. Nothing. Their schools stopped, their hospitals stopped, the food stopped, everything. And they didn't care. Now they're rioting down there. Now there's all kinds of problems. So that's one of the main issues that we have to get out there and vote, even though voting for a Democrat, no offense against Democrats, well, that's not true too. I can't believe that Democrats actually want to have a semi-socialist society right now. I can't believe it. I'm just awestruck. But on the flip side of that, That is human nature, though. Human nature, people want to have things given to them. They don't want to work for anything. They just want to give it to them. But there are people out there that really want to get down and work well for a good society. And a good example is if the youth want to know how well socialism works, maybe they should do a history lesson on communes. You know, California and the communes, we all live together, we all share together, we all have a warm, huggy feeling around the campfire, partying and just having a good time and being free. Well, freedom comes with a cost. But to get to the point about this is the communes, if you read what happened, I'm just reading some of the stuff that's popping up on Facebook here. I shouldn't let myself be distracted by that, but that's cool. But anyway, the communes, when they started out pretty well. Everybody got together and started doing things. One person would cook food, one person would clean, and they'd all work together for each other, which is what society is about. But once they found out that, I'll give you an example. If a baker baked 10 loaves of bread and then turned around and only got a half a loaf for himself or herself, and the rest went to everybody else, and that other person didn't do the laundry like they said they would do, that's when things started breaking down. Out of all the groups that did communes, 100% of them failed, because communes are based on the socialistic values and ideals. So, that being said, the reason why they failed is because you had the few go-getters that knew that if they went out there and did whatever job they had to do and did it well, they would be successful. Then almost more than half or 3/4 of the commune people didn't do anything, and they just allowed the 3 or 4 to do everything for them. And pretty soon the ones that were doing everything says, I don't need this. I'm not going to support these lazy bums on their butts. And they left. So when they left, all the bums on their butt, after everything ran out, all the supplies that they stocked up ran out, and nobody was producing anymore, nobody was doing anything anymore, they started crying and wailing, where's the help? What are we going to do? Please help us? You know, all this. And that's a good idea of what socialism is going to be. It's the reason why Venezuela is failing. That's why a lot of these countries. It's the reason why they use the caravan excuse coming to America, because all these people didn't want to work, or did want to work, and everything they put forth, the government took from them. But the problem is, they're in the same boat. They want to come here and find a good living for themselves, but they don't want to be a part of our society. Because if they did, they would go and become a citizen, not just breaking through the border and saying, hey, here I am, come get me, you know, boom. And then, you know, anyway, that's not what I wanted to get into on today's show. The reason is because we have the vote coming up. And that's part of the vote, is whether you love the Republicans or hate the Republicans. If the Democrats take over the House and the Senate, everything that you have right now that is going good for you will stop. You won't see it hit your wallet like tomorrow. But what will happen within a year, all that funding and all those deregulations And all that information and all those jobs that were created will stop. And the reason why it'll stop is because they will not allow it to continue on. Give you an example. Everyone's complaining, or not everyone. That's something I got to bring up on this. And I'm guilty of this too. The right is guilty of it. The left is guilty of it. The press is guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of this. Of the statement saying everybody doesn't want this, or everybody does want this, or all these people are involved. No. Only the people you're preaching to the choir to be honest with you. When you see the mass media and the Democrats and the socialists screaming, saying, everybody in the country doesn't want this. No. Every liberal Democrat in the country doesn't want this. Same thing with the Republican side, I have to admit. When they start screaming and hollering, we've got to have the wall, we've got to protect our country. Everybody wants this wall. No. The liberal left does not want the wall. But the rest of the constitutionalist American U.S. citizens do want the wall because this is our country. This is what we're here for. They're screaming about Trump taking 15,000 troops and putting them on the border, saying they can't do that. Well, it's going to be in a support fashion. I hope it's a little bit more than that. I hope it's more of a scare tactic to know, hey, look at you. This is what you guys got to face if you're going to try to come in. But that's what our government is geared for. That's what our military is for, to protect our sovereignty. We have to protect our sovereignty. And it's not sending some troops over to Iran and Afghanistan fighting terrorists, which is, they are doing their job and doing it well. But it is also protecting our borders. This caravan is not, I'm looking for asylum. If they were looking for asylum, they would have took asylum in Mexico, where they offered everybody asylum. They said, no, we don't want asylum in Mexico. We want to go asylum in the United States. Which, if you start looking into the history and the reasoning, is if somebody is claiming asylum, they have to claim it in the first border they cross. If they do not, this is the way I understand it, if they do not allow them to have asylum, then they're able to go to another country and request it. But if they say, hey, we're going to give you asylum, and the person requesting it denies it, saying, no, I don't want it here, I want to go over here, they're not looking for asylum. Simple as that. The problem is you have too many. The real problem is how can this person, there's one trying to sue the United States government for not allowing them to come to the United States. Are you kidding me? And they're actually going to acknowledge this in court? There's an actual lawyer that's going to take this case on? I mean, personally, I would love to be in that gallery during that trial. Because they would never, they'd have to throw me out. I'd be laughing so hard. If they even allow this to go to court, to even be presented anywhere, shows that our legal system is no longer a legal system. Our legal system is run by leftist liberal Democrats that are socialists that want to destroy our country. That's the reason why Kavanaugh had such a problem getting confirmed, is because they didn't want him in there. Simple fact is, he's a constitutionalist. He's a good one. If you look at his history, he's a darn good one. He knew what was going on. He knows how the law is written, and he knows how to judge properly. But the Democrats didn't want that. Oh, no. And look after everything's said and done, you don't hear anything about Dr. Ford. You don't hear anything about them trying to put a case against Dianne Feinstein. I mean, there's so many things that are being battled now, and a lot of the issues will be solved if people get out there and vote and put and keep the House and the Senate on the side of Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, that's a huge factor. Because our Congress, even the Republican side, a bunch of them didn't want Trump. And they made a good example of this one here. Was all they said is, look, if we get the House and the Senate, we'll get this done, they get this done. They lied to you. Because none of them came together to give the money for the wall. None of them came together to make prosperous all the laws that they're trying to pass, health care, get rid of Obamacare, the wall, better regulations, do the TTP thing and everything. They were all screaming and hollering. They didn't want to vote for this stuff because the Republicans, the swamp Republicans, are making as much money as the swamp Democrats. That's the dilemma we're in right now. We have to retain the House and the Senate. If we don't, we're going to be up the creek for a very long time. If we do, some of the swampy Republicans are going to be reelected, if you will. And to be honest with you, I was backing Dean Heller here in Las Vegas because I know Jackie Rosen is definitely lying to the people now. She's trying to be the middle of the road saying, oh, yeah, I go vote with Republicans and I do all this. And you hear this, too, from Sienna down there in Arizona. Her ads have gone totally from far left to almost being, I always work with Republicans and I'm a good bipartisan, please elect me. And that's where they're going now because they just want to get elected. They don't want to lose their jobs. Now, that being said, Heller is not a good Republican, but he's better than Jackie Rosen here in Las Vegas or in Nevada. And it's sad for me to say that, but Heller swings with the way the wind blows. And I'm going to tell you, he's going to be the perfect Jeff Flake from Arizona. Because I know Heller's going to get reelected. But what's going to happen with that is he's going to be wishy-washy when the Democrats come around. They're going to actually put the pressure on him and he'll cave to whatever side there is. And that's my fear of Heller. But that being said, we have to maintain control of the House and the Senate. One thing that was said by Sean Hannity, and I have to agree with him 100% on this. There's no doubt about it. I do have to agree on it. If the House and the Senate are taken and kept by the Republicans and the conservative right, the media and the liberal left will have the ultimate meltdown. It would be something that I would pay huge amount of money in ticket sales to see, because they will melt down huge. And you're going to hear it. Oh, it's a rigged election. The Russians did it. The Chinese did it. There was all kinds of fraud and all this kind of stuff. You're going to see this coming out big time during this election. It's going to start. It will start on Tuesday. People say you shouldn't make a prediction. Well, this is my prediction. I do predict that we will keep the House and the Senate, even though all the polls out there are saying that we're going to lose the House, but we'll pick up a few seats in the Senate. Nah. We're going to keep the House too. And the reason why I believe that is because the polling that they're doing right now is so slanted towards the Socialist Democrats that the questions are, it's the same style of questions. Do you still beat your wife? You know, that kind of stuff. Even though it doesn't happen, there's no way to answer that. And that's the way they're doing the polling, and that's the way they're structuring it. And it really irritates me on these polls like that. And it's the same thing during the presidential election. The night of the election, all the polls, I think there was just one that said no. All the polls said Hillary Clinton would win the presidency by 100%. 100%. That's what the polls were saying. And if you can't tell me that wasn't a slanted and manipulated polls, then there's something seriously wrong, because you cannot have 100% on a polling no matter what you do. That means 320 million people in the United States, every one of them said that they're going to vote for Hillary. Maybe not that drastic, but they said 100% that she would be elected, and she lost miserably. She got 3 million extra votes, the popular vote, over Trump, but those 3 millions were California and New York. Go figure on that one. Hence the reason for the Electoral College. So, anyway, that was just some of the issues coming up on this election. There's a lot of things. People are worried about health care, and they want to put the Democrats in charge of health care. They ruined health care. Their message is that if the Republicans get in, they're going to trash health care. They're going to get all these people with pre-existing conditions, and they're going to kill Medicare and Medicaid and all this, scaring the living daylights of everybody. And there'll be all these people off of, and will not be able to get insurance. Well, let's enlighten what really happened with the proverbial Obamacare. When Obamacare came along, it gave the ability to the insurance companies to dump all their high-risk people, the ones with pre-existing conditions, and then to reload them back on to the insurances at an extraordinarily high rate with deductibles and things they would not cover. This is what happened. When Obamacare came in and the insurance companies had to go around, I'm a single guy, so I just got your basic health insurance through there, and I was paying roughly about $100 paychecks, $200 a month. That is pretty darn good for a single guy. Families out there that have kids and stuff, you guys are paying $500, $600, $700 a month just insurances for your kids. Well, the problem that came about is my rates didn't change. My deductibles and things that I could charge did. I went from $500 deductible to a $5,000 deductible, which means I had to rack up $5,000 in medical bills before the insurance kicked in. Think about that. That is absolutely crazy. So now with somebody with pre-existing conditions, These people are in a real bind trying to get good health care. Half their paycheck goes for health care coverage. All right, we're going to continue on with this in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. I am Russell Mays, and this is KUNV.
Beware, there's danger lurking right under your nose. And probably on your hand, the gas pump, the ATM, the bathroom faucet, and the grocery cart. It's the flu virus, and this time of year, it's everywhere. The good news is you can protect yourself and your loved ones by getting a flu shot. Getting a vaccine is completely safe and pretty darn easy. It's available from your family doctor, at your local pharmacy, and at area flu vaccine clinics. Getting the flu is no fun. It can put a healthy adult or child in bed feeling terrible for days. And in some cases, it can be deadly. Symptoms include fever, cough, sore throat, and body aches. One flu vaccine could prevent all that. Visit influencenevada.org for clinic locations. Today, before danger strikes. This message sponsored by Immunize Nevada, aired in cooperation with the Nevada Broadcasters Association and this station.
Alrighty, I'm back. And what we have going on, of course, is we're talking about the elections coming up Tuesday. It's 62 degrees on the outside here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I hope everyone stays warm. It's going to be a little bit rainy on the East Coast for the election day, so be careful for that. Make sure you also set your clocks back an hour tonight at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning or however it does it. I'm just glad my computers and phones do it automatically. That's cool. So, talking about the elections coming up and how we have to retain the House and the Senate. Make sure you get out there. I did my early voting, which is cool. I was also wondering about that, too, on this early voting thing. And I did it out of convenience is what I did. But I think, personally, instead of having early voting, this is my opinion, I think the day of the election should be a national holiday. I think everybody should close down business and give everybody the day off to go vote. If our vote is that important for our thing, and they want to get people to the polls, first off, why on Tuesday? Okay, there's no really set. I've got all the information and literature here about why the elections were done, when they were established, first ones and all this. Why on Tuesdays, I have no idea, because the first election was actually done on December 15th in 1789, to be honest with you. And let's see if it set a day. What was December 15th? Nope, it just said December 15th. Okay. No biggie on that. But the point is why Tuesday? Everybody's working Tuesday, and then they get off at 5 o'clock. The polls are open until 8. So that gives everybody in the country 3 hours to rush down there to go vote. Or if they vote on lunch, or they have to figure it out. No. Give everybody the day off. Voting election day. On election day, national elections for the president and midterms, those should be days off. States, don't even get in there saying, well, we're going to vote for our city council today. Everybody gets a day off. That's the way that, So, anyway, I do think that they should be a bill proposed saying on the national elections that we should have that day off. Not to get off of work, but to get people out there to vote. Do you know how many more people would go to vote if they didn't have to go to work that day? Think about that. Your duty as a citizen is to go and vote for your elected officials. And you elected officials, your duty is to represent your people, not your back pocket. Simple as that. We're 30 minutes after the top of the hour of 8 o'clock. on November 3rd. You are listening to 91.5, the Rebel HD2, KUNV Las Vegas, broadcast services of UNLV down here in the basement of the Greenspun building on campuses. They keep me sequestered. They don't want me out there running around because I cause too much problems for the poor students. But if you want to chime into the studios, it's 702-895-3915. Say hello, how do you do? Check me out on Facebook. We're running live. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on my show on Facebook also. Appreciate that. If you want to follow up on the other shows, you can check my webpage out at radiorussell.net, and you can see all the previous shows that have been there. Make your comments there to me if you like. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'll listen to them all, or read them all anyway. So anyway, let's get into one of the issues that was being brought up a lot, and this is about voter ID and voter fraud. A little bit of information I did not know. I posted this yesterday on the states that actually have voter IDs, states that do not have voter IDs, and states that sort of acknowledge voter IDs. But it's interesting how many of the states that require voter ID of some form, whether it be photo ID or written ID, something like that, are mostly conservative. And the ones that do not require voter ID of any type are mostly Democrat. Isn't that interesting? And that's pretty much about the way it is split down the middle. If you look at the charts, some are like wishy-washy, that kind of thing. But the voter ID is a ridiculous endeavor, if you will. To make it mandatory to have voter ID sets everybody on a tirade. And to make it non-mandatory sets everybody on a tirade. I don't think they should make it mandatory. I just think that if you're going to come up and you say your name is Russell Mays and you're going to be voting, well, just prove who you are. You know, bring in a birth certificate or whatever. But these people, there was one story. Let's see if I can. It's one girl. I was reading a story, presidential elections. I won't do that one here. And this was an interesting little story about voter ID. As a registered voter, I thought I had to supply some form of ID. Nope. Basically, the way the story went, I was reading it last night, trying to find the information on somebody that was denied the right to vote. Okay, that means denying it. And, I'm going to get into this Brennan Center for Justice in a moment here. But anyway, the story goes that the DMV, are you ready for this? DMV was only open one day in a 30-day month period. So one day out of the entire month, DMV was open up in this state or town. And this woman or lady or girl was 18 years old, and she would have to drive 30 to 40 miles one way just to get her ID to vote. Okay, that was the question. That was the problem. Well, she didn't have time. She had to make time to go get it, and it wasn't convenient for her, and this ratification stuff. I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's possible. But my question is, if you're living 30 to 40 miles out of town in the middle of nowhere, how often do you really get into town anyway? So when you do go to town, do you schedule everything on one day? Or how do you do that? You know, and really to get nitty gritty, I have a 10-year driver's license. So if you can't go down to the DMV, let's just say everything that she said is true, and I don't believe it. I can't even find the information on DMV being open one day in 30 is the way the story went. Let's just say everything she said is true, and it's open one day a month, and she had to drive 40 miles to do that. Oh, the agony of it all. Okay, my dad had to walk to school uphill both ways in the snow barefoot. So, she only needs to go down one day. And what I mean by that is after she goes down and gets her ID, then she has it for the next 10 years. She doesn't have to go back down again. But she'll have to go back down to vote. Is she willing to go down to vote? Okay, so let's take it another step further. Does she have to go get her mail at the post office? Or does the mail person come out to her house on that 40-mile round-trip trek just to deliver her a letter? You know, and then I got to thinking about it even more so. Anyone that complains that they cannot get some kind of an ID, voter registration card, photo ID, driver's license ID, whatever it may be, is lying. And I'm going to be very blunt about that. All right, maybe they're not lying. They're just lazy. They don't want to go get their ID. They want everything handed to them. They just want... And the thing is if you're not willing to go get ID to vote, you're not going to vote anyway. Unless you allow someone to use your name to vote. Then again, you know... the voter fraud thing is a huge issue, and I think it's a pretty much of a lame duck issue also on voter frauds too. And we're going to get into that here in just a moment too. But seriously, if you're complaining that you have no ID to vote, then what kind of life are you having? You're not going to college. You're not going to school. You're not opening up a bank account. You're not going to get any welfare or any BEBT cards or anything like that. So what kind of ID do you need? Are you living seriously off the grid, as they call it, where you don't have any connection with anybody out there? If that is true, then you don't care about the elections anyway. I mean, this issue about not being able to get an ID is so ridiculous to me. But yet, they tout this to no end. The reason why I believe that we should have photo ID is, are you an American? You're a registered American. This is your duty. All right, if you want to come in and vote, that's perfectly fine. But they're screaming about, let's take Al Gore. The Chad issue. It all boils together here. It's all pulled together. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to voting, they don't want to have voter ID or any way to verify you are who you are to voting. But along the same lines, they don't want to fix the voter fraud issue that they're screaming about all the time. Oh, it's voter fraud. They had the Russians do it. Oh my God, the Cubans did it. Oh my God, the Chinese did it. Oh my God, they're denying this person from voting. Oh my God, the Democrats are getting dead people to vote. All this kind of stuff is screaming and hollering about voter fraud. Now, let's get into the voter fraud thing, okay? This is really interesting. They did the elections for the president. 1890, the first presidential election was held on, here it is, Monday, December 15th, 1788, to Saturday, January 10th, 1789. It was conducted under the new United States Constitution, which had been ratified earlier in 1788. In the election, George Washington was unanimously elected for the first of his 2 terms as president, and John Adams became the first vice president. Did you understand what I just read? I think you might have. December 15th through Saturday, January 10th. Think about that, folks. That is almost 25 days. 25 days. If my math was right, at 10, 15, 31, at 16, all right, 26 days to vote. Granted, they didn't have automobiles, they didn't have cars, and they had to live on the farm, but yet the government gave them 26 days to go down to vote. There was no campaigning during those 26 days either. It was get out to vote, get out to vote, get out to vote. Think about that. That poor girl couldn't go down the one-day DMV, proverbially DMV. Oh, I forgot. Oh, my God. You mean the police station was closed all that time, too? Oh, my God. You mean the post office was closed that day, too? So that means this poor girl had no post office, no police station, and a DMV all open on one day a month. The rest of the time they were all closed. She couldn't go down. I forgot that police stations do not issue police IDs, and post offices do not issue passport IDs. Oops. Are you kidding me? There's a whole bunch of places out there that does federal IDs, not just DMV. So let's take another issue. How are you going to get down there anyway if the DMV is only open one day a month? How are you going to go get your driver's license when you want to drive? So that means you don't have a driver's license and you have to walk anyway. So, all right. So I'm getting a little sarcastic-y on that. So anyway, when the elections, we did the Congressional Congress also at the same time. And they also, at this time, they didn't quite ratify the Electoral College also for the election of the president. About half of the 13 colonies at the time had the Electoral College. The other half did not. And let me see if they have let's see which one had the college and which one didn't. Virginia and New York, Massachusetts, and some of the other states did not have the Electoral College, and they didn't want it. They wanted the popular vote. But the popular vote, are you ready for this? There was no Republican or Democrats. There was Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Do you believe that? They actually call them Anti-Federalists. Okay, popular votes, electoral votes. Okay, let's see what we got here. The voting was done by, electoral because of the population. And they discovered that one or two of the states that had the most people were doing all the voting, and the states that had the fewer people that were still growing at the time, and people that were living 100 miles out that had 26 days to vote, didn't have the amount of people that were in the major cities. And the major cities and the metropolitan areas were carrying the elections no matter what they did, and they knew this was not fair. So even though it's a popular vote, their electoral college is supposed to vote with their constituents and how they're voting. That's the reason why Trump won, is because the states with the fewer people, if they voted for him, their electoral college had to go there. Now, I don't want to get off on a tangent on the electoral college, but I do think it should not be all take winner take all. Should not have a state like that. So if you have 100 people voting, I'm just giving an example, and 60 of them vote for one party and 40 for the other party, and you have 3 votes, or 3 electoral colleges, just say, 2 should go to the major and 1 to the minor. That's the way I think it should work. Some of them do that way, some of them don't, but that's my opinion. We do need the electoral college. So anyway, on the voter fraud thing, moving right on, a lot of things that were being mentioned out there saying that voter fraud is a fake and non-issue. There's a whole thing here. It says everything you ever wanted to know about voter ID laws. And it goes on and on about how the ballots, let's see, they are measures intended to ensure that the registered voter is who I say he is, and not an impersonator trying to cast a ballot in someone's name. The laws, most of which have been passed or strengthened in the last 5 years, require the registered voter show ID before they are allowed to vote. This is what it's saying. Exactly what they need to show varies. Some states require government-issued photo ID, while in others, current utility, a bank statement is sufficient. That's perfectly fine by me. You bring a bank statement, you bring in a utility bill, that's your proof that you live at this particular address. But the ones that are strongly saying that voter ID is not issued, it's not a big thing, is a place called, and did all the surveys, was Brennan Center for Justice. And the reason why I bring these people up, it was established in 1995 by Mike Walden, Patricia Baum, and Robert A. Atkins were the chairmen. Their budget is $21 million in 2017. Located in New York, and Washington, D.C. Website is blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let me just read. These are the people that are in charge of investigating voter ID, who's violating things, are they doing it right? It's like a checks and balance person. But it states right here off of their, it's off of Wikipedia, sorry. The Brennan Center for Justice at New York University Law School, does that tell you something right there, is a nonpartisan law public policy institute. You believe that one? Okay. The organization is named after Supreme Court Justice William J. Brennan. The Brennan Center advocates for a number of, are you ready for this, progressive public policy positions, including raising the minimum wage, opposing voter ID laws, and calling for public funding of elections. The organization opposed the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Citizens United versus FEC, which held the First Amendment prohibits the government from restricting independent political expenditures by nonprofits. The center states mission to work to hold your political institution and laws accountable to the twin American ideals of democracy and equal justice for all. The organization's president is Michael Walden, former director of speech writing for President Bill Clinton. Get it? This whole organization is geared towards the progressives. So what are you going to do about it? Okay, so they're the ones fighting against voter ID. They're the ones fighting against to get a higher minimum wage. Everything that is a socialistic view, these people are in charge of. They get $21 million on a budget per year. All right, Brennan idea of living constitution figures largely into the center's work. The Brennan Center started with an initial grant by the Carnegie Corporation of New York of $25,000 in 1996. The Carnegie Corporation in years since donated over $3 million during the selection process of what school to center operations from the Brennan Center selected New York University School, being choice of 3 schools. The other 2 were Harvard University and Georgetown. Let's see. The Brennan Center is involved in issues such as opposing voter ID. Let's see. It says restricting voters' activities. Let's see. Opposes mass incarceration. Procedures research the cause of the violent crime in the United States. Has a representative detains the. They represented the detainees at Guantanamo Bay detention camp. Legal residents held in all unlawful enemy combatants. Let's see. Attorneys for the center challenged a U.S. president's authority to declare a prisoner to be an unlawful enemy combatant in a fight against terrorism. That means if, like that Taliban John that came out through, he went from here to join the Taliban, like some of our politicians are saying, well, they should go join ISIS and fight against America. When they did that, they're going to defend this guy if he gets caught because he's an American citizen that is doing just like, Benedict Arnold went against the country. Also challenged Congress' power to deny habeas corpus against prisoners. Okay, let's see what else they've done. Center held, they actually consider the Constitution as a living document. I wonder how many people understand what they mean by a proverbial living document. That means that the document can be changed at the whim of whomever happens to be in charge at the time. It is perfectly okay to consider the Constitution a living document and to be changed at the whim if the Democrats are in charge. But the moment the Republicans are in charge, it's not allowed. You can't do that. Because a lot of this is coming down to Trump. Trump has thrown a wrench into everybody's work out there. Most people know this. Republicans and Democrats and independents, communists, Marxists, socialists, all of them. He's thrown a wrench right into everybody's works. Nobody knows how to handle him. And the reason why they can't handle him is because he is very open-minded, forthright with what he says. A lot of people are mad at what he tweets all the time. So what? He's telling you the way he feels. Obama went on a speech, and in all his speeches yesterday, on Friday, I have never seen him give a mad speech, if you will. He's usually very restrained, very prim and proper and pompous, if you will. But he never had a real angry speech. And he did yesterday. And he was very miffed, if you will, at the Republicans and Trump because of this election coming up Tuesday. And I got to thinking about that. They have Obama out there stumping for the Democrats, and he became irritated because he sees the writing on the wall. America is coming back. We are taking America back. We're not just going to give it over to whoever happens to be there, crying if you want to have a beer at a table and using all this racist BS to separate everybody in our country and to divide. That's exactly a lot of the procedures that were used in warfare. Let's be honest with you. Divide and conquer is huge. That's exactly the way it is. That's what they were doing to the country. They were dividing it and they were conquering it, and they got all these ridiculous rules and regulations passed. And it just annihilated our country badly. Why we allowed that was unbelievable. But, and I was guilty of this too, when Obama came in to be elected, I really thought he was going to be great. I really did. He had the opportunity to be one of the best presidents the United States has developed. He decided to be the worst president because he was very self-centered, egotistical, and thought he was God. He still does. And he did not care about America. Whether you like Trump or hate Trump, you don't like his tweets, you don't like his little name calling or labels that he puts on people. And I think it's funny as all get out. He talks like I do sitting in the living room. That's why people like him. But the true fact is, Donald Trump loves this country. He will do what he can to make this country great again and to keep it great. That's his objective. He is in a battle and a fight that nobody wants to back him except the American people that voted him in. Not one that I know of has swayed away from him through all this trials and tribulations that has been done. Not one. The Democrats, if you look at their campaigns now for the Senate and the House, are starting to slide towards the Trump side because they know the power that he brings to keep them in office. All they want is their job. So that right there proves they do not deserve to be in office. Because if they hated Trump, and now we're getting down to the election, now their viewpoints are, oh yeah, I voted with him and I believe this and I'll stick with the party and I'm a partisan and I'll reach across the aisle. Well, not one Democrat has reached across the aisle. The only one was Manchin. And he's the only one that did it with the Kavanaugh thing, the Kavanaugh elections. And whether he should be voted, he also goes with the wind. You know, he'll vote each way he was. All I know is I'm running out of time here pretty fast. Get out to vote. Tuesday is the choice that you will make. Will we have an America or will we have a socialist America? Simple as that. My name is Russell Mays. I do thank everybody today. It's been a very busy day online and here in the studios too. For all your time, Russell Mays, KUNV. Catch me again next Saturday, 8 o'clock to 9, right here at UNLV.
Alternative Radio.